What's going on, everybody? Welcome to episode 48 of the Josh Lopez Wrestling Podcast, very special weekend edition of the show. We're 2 episodes away from episode 50. Oopsie. 1 second, ladies and gentlemen. You've been doing this for 4 years. You got to remember, when you have extra link out, make sure to mute your YouTube options when you record the show on Google Hangout. I've been so used to recording the show on GarageBand over the past couple years. No, not past couple years, but the past couple months, I haven't been recording the show on Google and YouTube since, December or November, something like that. Yeah, either way. But we're 2 episodes away from episode 50. It's been a lot of fun. For those that missed episode 47, I got it pinned to the top of my Twitter page, which you can follow me at Twitter at NotoriousJoshy. You can check me out on the Pipe Out with McCool Company every Fridays on the New Age Insiders Network. Made a little bit announcement earlier this week. After WrestleMania this year, I'll be finishing my run with WrestleZone.com. So I want to thank those guys for the opportunity. I'm going to explain why I decided to leave a little bit after this recording is over. So stick around for that. And we got a lot to get into. We're going to be here for about an hour or maybe 45 minutes or so, depending how the conversation goes. But I'm not alone for this particular episode. I said on the podcast on Tuesday that I wanted to do this for a while and share you guys some of my favorite memories and experiences at WrestleManias and stuff. And a friend of mine reached out to me today. I sent out the link. I was like, hey, if you guys want to be part of the show, come on. I'm not afraid to have anybody else on the program. I got nothing to hide. Bring on the heat, suckers. So a friend of mine reached out to me. I've known this young man for about a couple years now. He's from the Chicago area, just like I am. Unfortunately, we haven't had the chance to meet each other in person, even though we're big AAW fans, which that's just a shame. That's got to change sometime soon. But anyways, I got a good friend of mine. You can follow him at Twitter at WRSE Brandon. He's a young broadcaster who goes to Elmhurst College here in Illinois, and he's joining the podcast for the first time. What's going on, my man?
Hey, Josh, I'm very, very excited to be here. This is a great opportunity for me. This is the very first podcast that I'm appearing in, and what better way to do it with about 8 days to go before WrestleMania, sharing our WrestleMania moments.
Yeah, so for those who don't know about you, I mentioned a little bit that you're a young broadcaster, but let the peeps know a little bit about your background, who's like some of your favorite wrestlers, and when did you start watching wrestling?
Definitely. I started watching wrestling back in 2006. I can even remember the specific time I started to watch wrestling. I remember it was like 2 or 3 weeks before No Way Out in 2006. That was where Kurt Angle and The Undertaker had a classic match for the World Heavyweight Championship.
Yep.
And at that time, I did not have cable, so I mainly was watching SmackDown, and, and because of that, me watching SmackDown all the time, I fell in love with Kurt Angle. Kurt Angle is one of my favorite wrestlers of all time. But my time's got to be Stone Cold Steve Austin. My older brother was a big, big wrestling fan back when he was younger, and he used to have a lot of Stone Cold t-shirts, and he would play the video games and stuff like that, and I would watch him, and I really fell in love with Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I'm sure a lot of other wrestling fans would say Stone Cold Steve Austin is their favorite of all time. He's definitely mine. Kurt Angle is up there too. And I've just been a dedicated watcher now for 10 years, and there have been some bad periods. There have been some really, really great periods, like the summer of 2011 with CM Punk. CM Punk's also one of my all-time favorites. Now my favorites are AJ Styles, most definitely. If you go on the indie scene, I really love Kazuchika Okada and Kenny Omega. I also like Kyle O'Reilly, fan of Ring of Honor, Lucha Underground, PWG, among other indie promotions, and AAW, which Josh mentioned earlier. I am also doing radio. Yes, you can follow me on Twitter at WRSC Brandon. I am currently hosting the Sports Authority with my good buddy Jacob Alley, and we are on the air every Thursday night from 6 to 8 p.m. I always put the link in our Facebook page for people to listen. And I'll be predicting WrestleMania probably on the show this weekend. And sports broadcasting has been something I've been wanting to do now for years old, and nothing has stopped me from pursuing that dream, and I will continue to pursue that. And really, really love what I do, and I'm gonna continue to do my show because that's what I love doing the most.
That's awesome. And Brandon is very, very talented guy. Check out his work. I checked out a couple editions of the Sports Story. The guy knows his stuff and very versatile. And I appreciate that. And I'm part of the generation that's trying to add a new spice to the wrestling media scene and try to change things up a little bit. I think the voice, if you will, of the common wrestling fan is becoming a little outdated in my point of view, especially for the more top tier wrestling podcasts out there. Look, it's not to discredit them. They're very good, and I respect all of them. I'm not talking about ones that are hosted by wrestlers or former writers, by the way. That I'm talking about just like regular fans like us or reporters or broadcasters. So I feel like it's time to change things up a little bit. I'm tired of hearing the perspective from somebody that only likes 70s and 80s wrestling, to be honest with you. And I'm also a little bit tired of hearing the same guy gloating for TV 14 in order to get ratings on a wrestling program. It's time to move on. It's 2017. I've been watching wrestling since 1998, and I'm still a fan just as much as I am right now than I was as a kid. So it's time to move on, ladies and gentlemen. By the way, you get your own time to move on Pipe Bomb Member Berries t-shirt. Yes, you remember? I remember. Shout out for you South Park fans out there. You get there. Get that t-shirt. Hit up McCool NAI on Twitter. That's Matt McCool. That's the calls of the pipe on that I'm fortunate to be on each week. But anyways, we're going to talk a little bit about WrestleMania memories, matches that stand out to us. I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple times, a couple of stories that I have from going out to past WrestleManias, and maybe talk about this year's show before we wrap up. So we got a lot to get into. I always ask my guests when I had my old Pro Wrestling Experience show during Mania season this one question. Brandon, what does WrestleMania mean to you?
What WrestleMania means to me is, it does not matter what the state of WWE may be. It does not matter how low the ratings are. It doesn't matter how low the house show attendance may be. It doesn't matter how good or bad the product may be. The thing about WrestleMania to me is that 90,000 people still show up every single year. And, I've never been to a WrestleMania live and in person, but I can feel it whenever I watch it on pay-per-view or the WWE Network. It feels larger than life. You have people from around the world that are coming to one location, and they're all this year, obviously, and they're there to have a good time and to see a spectacle of a show. WrestleMania is the time of the year where WWE goes all out to try and put on a really, really spectacular show. And sometimes, they've fallen short, like WrestleMania 32 last year and past WrestleManias before that. But what WrestleMania means to me, it's the one time of the year where and gets together and they watch a spectacle of a show.
WrestleMania means to me as the largest wrestling fan rehab event. And what I mean by that is that you have a congregation of wrestling fans that bring in all their stress and their angry little things that get them irked about wrestling, and they all bring them down to one city. And then it's the ultimate escape at the same time. I know you go to rehab and try to fix your issues, but it's also an escape from the people that try to bring you down all the time. And I I'll admit that from my point of view, from past WrestleManias I've been to, literally, especially for those that are not going without family members or chaperones or crap like that, when you go out to WrestleMania on your own accord, it's truly a big life experience that you gain, especially as a young adult. And I learned a lot of life lessons on my own when I went out to California a couple years ago, and it's really to relieve stress and have a good time. We spend 364 days out of the wrestling calendar to whine and moan and bitch about every little minute thing that happens on a wrestling show. But there's always that one night that no matter how you feel or what wrestling website you cling on to get your information about wrestling and form your opinion off of that, you go to the one show, you watch it, and at the end of the night, you're just sitting back and not really worrying about those stuff. At least I feel that way. You go to the show, you watch it, you take it in as an in, and then you critique it after, or maybe a week or a month or so after. It's really cool. WrestleMania, no matter like what Brandon said, doesn't matter what's going on in the programming, you just block all that stuff out of your head and try to enjoy the biggest spectacle in all of professional wrestling.
All of professional wrestling, and Wrestle Kingdom, New Japan holds it every January 4th. They have 40 or 50,000 people in the Tokyo Dome, but and yes, Wrestle Kingdom, it's been an amazing show the last couple of years, but still, nothing can beat WrestleMania. WrestleMania is the biggest show in all of professional wrestling all year long. All the talent, they go out there and try to steal the show, and they know the whole world is watching. The whole world is watching WrestleMania, and that really, I think, is what motivates them to put on a really, really great show. And hopefully with this year's WrestleMania, they will go out there and really showcase that.
And a lot of part about WrestleMania is it has a me versus the world mentality from a lot of fronts, from a fan point of view and from a wrestler and business point of view. Mm-hmm. If you look at the first WrestleMania, the McMahons gambled their entire profits to get WrestleMania on air, despite old-timers going against them and saying, "Oh, you're ruining the business," and all this other jazz. They took a risk. They gambled on their own accord, and it worked out for them. And I feel after year, as a fan, you still try to show the people that come out to you, like, why you bother your time watching stuff that's fake? Or why are you getting so upset over something that's not real at the end of the day? And at least for me, I bring up to people the fact that you're telling me that I'm getting upset over something that's not real on the wrestling service, yet you're screaming and hollering over something that you didn't like on The Walking Dead, but that
pisses me off. Yeah.
and whenever somebody tries to tell me that wrestling's fake, I say, ask Darren Drozdov if wrestling's fake.
Or Yoshitatsu.
Yeah, or Owen Hart if it's fake. Obviously, he can't. He's dead. So that's one of the main things that always pisses me off. And it's really a big congregation and a celebration of the business. It doesn't matter if you're just a New Japan fan or a Ring of Honor fan. You can't tell me for the harshest wrestling, no, not the harshest wrestling, but the harshest WWE so-called critic out there, you can't tell me those people are not watching WrestleMania.
Absolutely. Just, again, it doesn't matter if like you kind of been out of the woodworks in WWE, if you haven't been really paying attention to the product. The fact is everybody comes together. That's what it is. WrestleMania brings everyone together, and yeah, it truly is larger than life. I can even say that without even having to go to a WrestleMania live, and I've seen every single WrestleMania, and I feel that every time I watch one.
Before we get into the memories, I'd like to talk a little bit about this year's particular WrestleMania. Just some general things. I know you're going to save your predictions for your show this upcoming week, so it's cool. generally for me, my thoughts about this year's WrestleMania, and I talked a little bit about this on the podcast on Tuesday, is that I feel that this year's WrestleMania has been one of the more pure and developed manias in the last 10 years. Speaking from the fact that usually in years past, WWE books their shows backwards in regards to WrestleMania, and it's the journey towards that way. And literally, if you're looking at the card that they have for WrestleMania this year, 80% of the feuds have had long-term implications to it. I brought up Triple H and Seth Rollins goes back to August. Brock and Goldberg goes back to October. Bray and Randy Orton goes back to September. There's so many different feuds. Even like a Dean Ambrose and Baron Corbin match, that's something that's gone back from January. So as opposed to years past of destroying matches just for attraction's sake, and it's WrestleMania season, let's see if this pairing works with that pairing. It's really something that's been brewing through the product from the fall, the winter, into where we are right now in the springtime, and I think it's really special, and it's really hasn't had that feel to it since WrestleMania 19, where it's actually the first WrestleMania where you had both the split rosters. So you have a lot of matches, you got a lot of attraction matches, you have a lot of title matches on the show. In my opinion, this is one of the more developed WrestleManias in a long time.
I have to agree with you, and that's how it should be every year for WrestleMania. These storylines should be built up over a long period of time. That's how the story of Daniel Bryan worked at WrestleMania 30. You had the Authority storyline that went all the way back to SummerSlam in 2013. It all culminated with Daniel Bryan winning the WWE Championship at WrestleMania 30. Now, was that the moment WWE wanted? No. In his book that he was supposed to be fifth down on the card wrestling Sheamus, but it really made sense for them to climax the Authority storyline and Daniel Bryan's chase for the championship at WrestleMania. And you're right, you said the Daniel Bryan or the Randy Orton Bray Wyatt feud's been going on since September. Seth Rollins and Triple H has been going on since August. I really loved how majority of these matches have been built over a long period of time. You know, when you're trying to build a WrestleMania card within, I don't know, 6 or 7 weeks, it's really not going to feel as special if you're going to, as opposed to building up stories over time. So I do like how these matches have been assembled, and we'll see if they can go out there and put on great performances.
And even if there's matches that you're iffy on, like for me, like it doesn't matter what pay-per-view it is, whether it's a Rumble or a Payback or a Survivor Series. I always look at the show and I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna let this play out. I'll see how the angles work out to the lead up and also the pay-per-view. Like it's hard for me to automatically have an assumption of how something's gonna play out. I need to let it play out as it happens on screen, and that also includes WrestleMania, because, for example, I saw a lot of people acting like the world was going to come to an end when John Cena was booked to have this mixed tag match with his girlfriend against Miz and Maurice. Miz has been one of the best overall characters in all of wrestling, not just the WWE in the past calendar year. And their promos recently back up my assertion there. And it doesn't matter if you're the biggest wrestling purists out there. I think a lot of people forget the fact that WrestleMania is not Wrestle Kingdom, nor should be.
No,
it shouldn't be that way. It's about having those moments. Like, for example, it's now comes to the point where he's the ultimate special attraction piece. That's what he is. He doesn't have to have a 6-month feud in order to get you invested in the WrestleMania program anymore. Like, he's the only exception in that front, because obviously I know a lot of people call Shawn Michaels Mr. WrestleMania, but I think that distinction also could belong to Undertaker as well. So there's a lot of good aspects to WrestleMania, and I can't wait to be there next weekend.
Yeah, lucky you. Honestly, I am the mixed tag, John Cena, Nikki Bella, Miz, and Maurice, that's honestly one of the matches I'm mostly looking forward to on this WrestleMania card, and it mostly has to do with The Miz. You hit the nail right on the head. The Miz has been performers in the entire company over the last calendar year. He's been killing it, especially with Maurice in his corner, and it's all going to culminate. If he beats John Cena and Nikki Bella, which I don't think it's going to happen, that would be truly, truly remarkable. And you mentioned too about the Undertaker. He should get some credit for being Mr. WrestleMania. Another person that I think should be considered to be Mr. WrestleMania is Hulk Hogan, solely for the fact that he helped launch WrestleMania, and also he was in the first 9 WrestleManias in a row, and he main evented 7 of them. Yeah, so Hulk Hogan should definitely get some of that credit, and it seems to me that WWE could be bringing him back at some point.
Now, for us Midwestern folks here in Chirac, if you will, we know that we're not going to get a WrestleMania in a long time, not just because Nimrods can't stop chanting CM Punk every stinking event that we have here in the city. But
that annoys me. I hate that.
But we got a rocket ship on the lakefront as Bears fans, so obviously we're not going to have a WrestleMania at the Jimmy Neutron ship. That's not happening anytime soon. Like, if I only had one point of contention of WrestleManias, is the fact that they keep going out to the East Coast every other year. It's kind of getting ridiculous. I know they're going to New Orleans next year, which is fine. It's a dome. They're celebrating their 300th year as a city, which is kind of interesting. That's pretty cool that they're having the Super Bowl there, I think, and then also WrestleMania as well. So good for New Orleans. But us Midwestern folks have been fortunate enough to have WrestleManias over the past couple years. For example, I had this new retro T-shirt that I got just for this trip that I'm having. I got it off a website called Extreme Wrestling T-Shirts, and it's a retro shirt of Bret Hart versus Stone Cold Steve Austin for WrestleMania 13, which was here in 1997.
Yes, sir.
Chicago also had WrestleMania 2, part of that 3-city extravaganza. And of course, the first WrestleMania that I went to, WrestleMania 22 in Chicago, all at the Rosemont Horizon. I'm not calling it Allstate Arena. Other people can do that, which is perfectly fine, but it's always the Rosemont Horizon. And I say this a lot on the podcast, and I get some flack for it, but it's all good. I've been to shows at MSG before. Nothing in the wrestling world beats the atmosphere of the Rosemont Horizon during a hot wrestling show.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you on that. I did miss out on going to WrestleMania 22. I just didn't have enough money at that point. And yeah, it was my first year of being a wrestling fan, but I didn't attend WrestleMania 22. Oh well. But I have been to WWE events at the Rosemont Horizon. It's truly a really, really great atmosphere being there. I've been there for pay-per-view. I've been there for Extreme Rules 2015. I went to SmackDown back in December. I've been to a couple of house shows there. No matter what event the Rosemont Horizon has, you're going to be in for a really great atmosphere. And watching WrestleMania 22 on pay-per-view, I could feel the atmosphere just sitting on my couch watching the show. What was it like for you to see Edge versus Mick Foley live and in person?
I could tell you this, and this is a shoot. That building stunk for about an hour and a half after the fact because throughout the arena after the table was put through, and then the next match was Booker T and Boogeyman with his smoke simmering through the arena. So that's the first thing that I do remember from watching it live. But to see something like that at the age of 11, at the time I was still kind of younger, and I didn't get to fully grasp the ECW style of a hardcore wrestling match, especially in person. I thought that was really cool to see something like that. Thumbtacks and how big of a part Lita had in that match as well. It's one of my favorite matches. I know a lot of people say that's probably their only favorite part of that WrestleMania. I don't know, maybe it's just my bias from actually being there, but I feel that WrestleMania is very underappreciated, especially for that time period of the WWE.
I agree. I thought WrestleMania 22 was actually a really, really, really good show. Yes, Edge and Mick Foley was the match of the night, but you also had Shawn Michaels and Vince McMahon, which I thought was a really good match. Easily, it's you can really go either way with the match that Vince had with Shawn Michaels or the street fight he had with Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 17. I kind of tend to lean toward the street fight more for the best match of Vince's career, but that one is a really close second. That was a very fun match. The triple threat for the world heavyweight title, even though it was way, way, way too short, it was still a very good match. What else did you have on that card? Yeah, Money in the Bank was really good. Ric Flair taking the superplex off of the top of the ladder. I was afraid he was dead, but it was crazy to see him take a superplex off the top of the ladder. And the main event, John Cena and Triple H, I thought was a really, really, really good match. I'm surprised that Cena did not take the pedigree even once for a near fall, but the match really built to a really great finish, and John Cena retained the title in the main event. Plus, CM Punk was part of John Cena's entrance.
Yes, and getting to see the King of Kings theme song debut for the first time, where Triple H came from under the stage in that awesome badass seat that he was sitting in during his entrance, the Conan stuff. I thought that was freaking awesome. I said this a lot, that Triple H and John Cena may be one of my favorite WrestleMania main events of all time, because to me, it's literally one of the purest old school world title main events that you can't find anywhere else. I know John Cena had an awesome match with Shawn Michaels the year after in Detroit, but just I can tell you, for being there in the atmosphere during that Triple H and John Cena match was truly special. A little fun story. I went with the show with my dad, and they were chanting "Fuck you, Cena," and so he allowed me to do it because the whole crowd was doing it. It was kind of a cool kid moment where your dad lets you swear in a public event like that. So yes, I was a part of the "Fuck you, Cena" contingent during that match. But wasn't against him. I just wanted to be part of it. I thought it was really funny. But anyways, that WrestleMania is really special to me. And I also thought the Mickie James and Trish Stratus match was one of the really good matches for the women's division during that time period as well.
I love the build up to that match.
Yes. Absolutely. Mickie, I always say this, if there was one women's wrestler that I'm attracted to, we have the saying the pipe bomb waterfalls, Mickie James would be at the top of that list. But anyways, other WrestleMania memories that stand out to me over the years, obviously people could go to Money in the Bank matches because it originated from WrestleMania, then spawned off into its own pay-per-view. But for me, a lot of my favorite matches are ones that came out of nowhere that actually surprised me. So, for example, Edge and Chris Jericho from WrestleMania 26.
Oh, I love that match.
So that one stands out to me. Punk and Orton the year after that from 27, or even matches that people may not be into and they surprise you no matter what the build was. Like, for example, Randy Orton and Seth Rollins from WrestleMania 31. And there's many, many more that I could dish off the top of my head, but for me, I like seeing matches and feuds prove people wrong, that they're shitting on them the whole time, and then everyone's like, "Oh yeah, that was awesome! This is awesome! This is awesome!" One thing I do not like about WrestleMania crowds, just WrestleMania weekend in general, is Nimrod chanting "We are awesome" like the Brooklyn crowd for this past Monday's Raw. I don't know about you, Brandon, but "We are awesome" is kind of the more disrespectful chants I hear all calendar year. That's a spit in the face talent. No, you're not awesome.
I agree with you. "We are awesome" is not fun. It is not funny. It was cute the night after WrestleMania 29 when they were crapping all over Sheamus and Randy Orton, but no, that is a very, very disrespectful chant, and I'm really not a fan of that chant. And And neither the CM Punk chant. Yeah, I know it gets on your nerves. It gets on my nerves. The bottom line, people, is that he's never coming back. But that's my rant on crowd chants.
But going back to what I mentioned about matches that surprise you, which ones come to your mind?
The number one example that comes to mind for me has got to be the Undertaker versus Batista at WrestleMania 23. When during the build up to that match, I know a lot of people thought the match was going to be bad, but I actually rewatched it today on the network, and I'm still in awe with how awesome it was. It was just two big bulls going in there, just beating the crap out of each other. They hit a lot of great power moves. It was a really great back and forth match. I love Batista doing the running power slam through the announce table to the Undertaker. Just a really great match that I feel does not get talked about enough when we're talking about WrestleMania 23. WrestleMania 23, in my opinion, as an entire show, does not get the credit it deserves. I think 23 was one of the best WrestleManias of all time, to be honest with you. Again, Undertaker Batista match. You had, I think, the second best Money in the Bank of all time at WrestleMania 23. John Cena and Shawn Michaels. Up to that point, I thought that was the best match of John Cena's career, until the rematch that Shawn Michaels and John Cena had on Raw in Milan, Italy, that went like an hour. I thought that was better, but let's see, Benoit and MVP had a really good match for the United States Championship. That match, Undertaker and Batista, does not get enough credit. The WrestleMania as a whole, I don't think gets enough credit. Another match that I don't think gets enough credit when talking about past WrestleManias would be, let me think here. I would go with you with Edge and Chris Jericho. I thought that was an awesome match, and I truly believe that if they did not do Undertaker and Shawn Michaels at 26, that could have been the main event of that year's WrestleMania, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I can see that. I can see that. I could also see a scenario where they had Kurt Angle was the WWF champion before WrestleMania 17.
Right.
And I thought him and Benoit could have had that opportunity too during that time period, because Benoit was like really a big star growing into that main event guy during that time period too. So I thought that could have been that, but that was just ended up being a one-on-one match. Other matches, like for example, I thought Roman and Brock a couple years ago
that was amazing. Love that match.
But unfortunately, the only thing people say good about it is it's only the fact that Seth Rollins came out to save the match, and I don't think that's the case. I think that's a spit in the face of both guys, because I thought Brock and Roman did really good work in there. Now, speaking of Roman, you brought up the Taker Batista match. I don't know about you, Brandon, but I have the similar kind of vibe for that match to the one we're going to get next Sunday between Roman and Undertaker.
Oh, okay. I mean, here's the thing about Roman and the Undertaker. I truly believe it's going to be the Undertaker's last match. But this is the thing. I feel that Roman Reigns is going over, but yet I don't think that it's going to be the official heel turn of Roman Reigns as well. Like Vince McMahon just really wants to stay the course and keep Roman Reigns as a babyface. I just think you got to do it. You got to do the heel turn at WrestleMania. I don't know how you do it. You got to try and do it there, but I don't know. Roman and Undertaker could Roman Reigns, I feel that people don't give him enough credit for him having great matches, because he's had a lot of great matches as well. Prime examples of this would be the main event against Brock Lesnar. I thought that was just an outstanding match, even before the Rollins cash-in. Just last month, Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman, I thought, had a great match. Yeah. Let's see, what else has Roman Reigns had? He had a great Hell in a Cell match with Bray Wyatt. Rusev. He's had great matches with Seth Rollins. And who knows? He could possibly pull out a great match out of 52-year-old Undertaker. We'll see.
Here's my take on the whole Roman stuff, especially in regards to the heel turn. I kind of laugh at people that saying that the curation for Roman Reigns is for him to turn heel. Only from this preference is the fact that we're spending 3 years of this notion that Roman's being shoved down your throat. Yet a guy that's been highly pushed, has taken clean losses on pay-per-view, has barely been in the amount of segments that John Cena was when he was being shoved down your throat. And like for me, the whole Roman Reigns turning heel is kind of obsolete to me. Now I'm not bringing this up because I'm a Broken Matt Hardy fan, but I am. But
yeah,
but still, like you're gonna say all his issues are gonna be taken away if he turns heel. Well, I say when he turns heel, people are gonna be cheering him. And that just negates the whole point of it. You're booing the guy out of the building because CM Punk said on a podcast that an agent came up to him and said, make Roman look strong. That's really the emphasis of why people hate the guy, and people can't tell me I'm wrong with that because people were kissing the guy's ass when he had that feud with Randy Orton a few years ago, and then he has the hernia injury. We get the podcast after that, and the guy's the scum of the earth. I don't get it. Like, you're gonna boo the guy, but your logic is that not you, Brandon, but I'm saying other people. Their logic is that if Roman turns heel, all his problems are gonna be saved. Everybody's not gonna have a problem with him. BS, because it's not like you're gonna boo the guy louder. The guy is not gonna get booed any louder than he is right now. It's just not possible.
No, I agree with everything you just said there, Josh, but I'm saying that long term, I think a heel turn would be great for Roman Reigns. Stone Cold, he said this numerous times on his podcast. In order to be a great babyface, you have to be a great heel first. On that opportunity, yes, he's getting booed everywhere, but Vince McMahon is staying the course of keeping him as a babyface. Yeah, when he turns heel, nothing is going to be fixed with Roman Reigns. He still has to get over as a heel. I still believe people are going to boo him even when he turns heel. It's just that you got to do it. You got to turn him heel so it could benefit him for the future. And he's still a young guy. He's only 31, 32 years old, and you have to do it. You have to do it at some point. I've heard this expression all the time that you can't be half pregnant. You can't be. You can't. You're either this or you're that. You're either a heel or you're a babyface. And right now, Roman Reigns has got to turn heel. He has to, and it's not going to fix his character as a whole, but him turning heel will benefit him in the future.
Well, I could correlate the whole half pregnant thing to Stone Cold and The Rock. Like,
that's right.
I'm not comparing Roman to those caliber performers. I like Roman. He's not my favorite guy on the roster, but I'm a fan of his. But my point is, it's okay for Austin and Rock to play that in between tweeter role, but Roman can't.
Hypocrites. Hypocrites.
Yeah. Exactly. You want heels and baby faces, but you cheer Kevin Owens. You cheer Samoa Joe. You guys mark out for Samoa Joe. When Joe came out that night after the Rumble, everybody's like, this is awesome. And he's helping out the bad guy Triple H.
No, here's the thing, too. Here's another point I want to bring up. I've run into a couple of people that absolutely despised the AJ Styles John Cena matches from SummerSlam and the Royal Rumble. And yet they're the same people who are in love with Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker at WrestleMania 25 and 26. Yeah. All I say to them is that the Taker Michaels matches from 25 and 26, and yet you hated the Styles and Cena matches, then that too makes wrestling fans hypocrites, because guess what? Those series of matches were the exact same, except just replace the finishing moves. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. And I mentioned this a lot on the podcast. You can't have it both ways. You can't have it both ways. It just doesn't work like that. Now, unlike other people, I don't live and die off of booking decisions. You know that, Brandon.
Yeah.
I really don't care about that stuff unless they're putting wins and loss records during their entrances. I really don't care what their booking is. I really don't. But you're gonna go on a soliloquy about how Roman is ruining the fun for you as a wrestling fan off of something that somebody said on a podcast. It's something that he's not even responsible for.
It's it just annoys me.
You took the perception of what somebody said on the podcast that really had spite in it at the first place. And look, I love Punk. I say all the time, Punk's my favorite wrestler, but I don't have to agree with every little thing that he says. I didn't agree with a lot of what he said in that podcast. I think that's an insult to Undertaker to say, oh, I deserve a bigger paycheck than Undertaker does at a WrestleMania. Bullshit. No. But
absolutely.
My whole thing is, we'll move on here. Like, I get really annoyed where people said this is one way to look at it and it's this way or the highway. No, we whine and moan about WWE logic and this and that, but at the same time, when I mention this a lot of my podcasts, you got to look into the logic of the stuff that you're bitching about in the first place.
Thank you, and I'll bring up one more point, and then we'll get back to the the WrestleMania chat.
Mm-hmm.
You said this perfectly at the beginning of the podcast, is that a majority of wrestling fans, they always want to look back to the past. They always want to talk about the Attitude Era. They always want to talk about this. And when one little incident happens nowadays in professional wrestling, they want to stop watching. Like, I know a couple of people that stopped watching wrestling just because John Cena won his 16th championship at the Royal Rumble at the Alamo Dome, and all they want to talk about is old school 90s wrestling. Yes, old school 90s, 80s wrestling, it was great, but the problem is that wrestling fans need to move forward. I know you've moved forward, Josh. I know you're still a wrestling fan. I've moved forward. I'm still a wrestling fan. Forward. They need to look to the future, and I feel that a majority of wrestling fans don't do that.
Yeah, and it's not a whole thing where I'm trying to be me against the fans type thing. It's not my whole thing. It's that a lot of the fan base just fall in line like sheep to whatever somebody says on the podcast. I mentioned it on the show. You don't have to agree with everything I say. That's perfectly fine. But why is it that, just because Mr. Meltzer said something on this podcast, that means, that's the gospel. That's just the only way to look at it. I think that's BS. It's really ruined the fun out of what we watched this in the first place for. Like, somebody brought a question to us in the pipe bomb, like, are we ever going to have a day where we don't have authority figures on a wrestling show? I said no, because in today's landscape, we're only watching the show for booking decisions. So if you're going to have a wrestling show with just random wrestling matches, you're going to have those people be like, well, where's the person that's setting up the reason for these matches in the first place? And like, it's all over the place. But it's not me trying to be mean against the fans. I'm trying to change the perception of how things really are. And it's unfortunate that we've taken the business for granted because we don't have the ability to form our own opinions. And
Most definitely.
That's unfortunate. So going back to the WrestleMania stuff, we got probably half an hour left. But Brandon, list off like some of your favorite moments or matches that you always cling on to in regards to WrestleMania. It doesn't have to be recent ones; it could be old ones too.
No, yeah, most definitely. I'm going to talk about first my favorite matches that were like not in the main event of WrestleMania, and then I'll get into some of my favorite main events, if that's all right.
That's cool.
Okay, great. Some of my favorite matches in WrestleMania history. The very first one that comes to mind for me is Bret versus Stone Cold at WrestleMania 13. That match was just an absolute spectacle. I was only 3 months old when that match happened, but I went back and I've seen it numerous times on YouTube and on the network, and it just gets better every single time I watch it. Easily the greatest double turn I think in wrestling history. Just an absolute spectacle of a match, and that's definitely one that comes to mind. I also Razor Ramon and Shawn Michaels, of course, the ladder match from WrestleMania 10. Randy Savage at WrestleMania 3 was just a match that was way, way, way ahead of its time, and one of my all-time favorite professional wrestling matches, to be honest with you. Ric Flair and Randy Savage from WrestleMania 8, that was a match that definitely should have been the main event of WrestleMania 8 and not Sid and Hogan. Randy Savage in the Ultimate Warrior's retirement match at WrestleMania 7, just an emotional thrill ride and an amazing match as well. Shawn Michaels WrestleMania 25, of course. What else? What are some of my other favorites? I also really love CM Punk and Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 28. They really stole the show. Even though like the end of an Hell in a Cell was better, but I still thought Go just did an excellent job. Some of my favorite main events of all time from WrestleMania would have to be Roman and Brock at 31. It would have to, others would be, I think my all-time favorite WrestleMania main event would be Undertaker and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 26. Of course, Austin Rockets WrestleMania 17. Let's see, what else? John Cena and Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania 23. And Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle at WrestleMania 19. Those are some of my favorites. And another one of my favorite just overall matches would have to be Rock versus Hulk Hogan at WrestleMania 18. Just the whole atmosphere with that match, with the crowd completely turning on The Rock and getting behind Hulk Hogan, was definitely something to see. And just the atmosphere in the Sky Dome just really fit it. And the match itself was actually really awesome. So those are some of the matches and main events that come to mind for me when it comes to WrestleMania.
There's a lot of good ones right there, man. Like,
indeed,
there you can make like a catalog of WrestleMania matches. Like, if you really did like a round table, you could spew off like about 300 WrestleMania matches from like 10 different people.
No kidding.
That's how big this event has grown over the past 30 years. For me, like I mentioned, the Triple H and John Cena match and how big that atmosphere was. Another one like that for me was Chris Jericho and Shawn Michaels for WrestleMania 19. It's one that stand out to me. Also, Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels, WrestleMania 21.
Forgot to mention that.
I know my friend Frank Manson would crucify me if I didn't mention Kurt Angle and Shawn Michaels.
That was Bobby Heenan said that was the greatest match he has ever seen live and in person, and it's one of my all-time favorite wrestling matches. What a spectacle.
Yeah, that was the year he got into the Hall of Fame too, right? 05?
2004.
Oh, 04, yeah, that's the year before. But another one, and I know, and I agree for people not bringing up his name, but one of my favorite WrestleMania main events was Triple H, Shawn Michaels, and Chris Benoit for WrestleMania 20.
Yeah.
Also one of my favorite matches. And speaking of ones that we thought were underrated, I thought Undertaker and Kane's first matchup for WrestleMania 14, and especially the story going into that, was very underrated.
Yes.
Kane and Undertaker, go check that out. I have certain bias because besides Punk, Taker was always my childhood favorite. So you go check out that one on the network if you guys haven't seen it yet. Other ones recently, like I was really into the Jericho and AJ match from last year's WrestleMania. I know a lot of people were bummed out that Jericho won, but that match was off the charts. Let's see. Oh, it's interesting. This year's WrestleMania is at the Dump, the Citrus Bowl. Yes, I am going to call it the Dump because I can tell a dump from a mile away. Especially coming from the city, I know what dumps look like. But WrestleMania is being in the same place it was for 24. Undertaker and Edge.
Awesome main event.
You had
Money in the Bank.
Money in the Bank, obviously, Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels. You had, I remember Cena, Orton, and Triple H, kind of similar to the 22 match with Ray, Kurt, and Randy, but very good match nonetheless. And I thought Batista and
Umaga. I did not like that match.
No,
I did
I was
not
gonna say,
like it.
I was gonna say Batista and Cena from WrestleMania 26 was very underrated as well.
Oh yeah, that was a really really good match. I wish it got more time, but I
Hmm.
still thought that both of those guys put on a great match, and I thought it was very 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 similar to their match at SummerSlam 2008, and I loved that they recreated the final spot from that match when Cena was going to come up off the top rope and Batista did a Batista bomb.
And some people thought that Cena and Batista were actually going to main event that show that year. I remember that. Some were like, "You need to have Shawn Michaels close out that show."
And he did.
Man, yep, and they did. You got what you wanted, and and for me, I thought that Taker and Shawn should have closed out 25 too. The year before that. I think it's unfortunate sometimes when you have these Undertaker matches and then his match like ruins the rest of the show. Not because of him, but like you can't follow those type of matches, especially 25. And I remember the one he had with Punk at 29 a few years ago. That one's really special. Punk and
Yeah.
Taker. Here's a question I got for you before we move on to our next point here.
Sure.
What matches you feel bummed out that never happened at WrestleMania?
That
Recently.
never happened at WrestleMania recently.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it's got to be. Could I say Daniel Bryan versus AJ Styles?
Yeah, you could. Yeah.
I thought that would have been just a tremendous match at WrestleMania. Really put anybody with Daniel Bryan, and that would be my answer. Daniel Bryan and AJ Styles, Daniel Bryan and Brock Lesnar, or Shinsuke Nakamura, somebody. Just anybody with Daniel Bryan would be my answer.
Not bad. I like that. A lot of people are gonna be shocked by me saying this, but I'm into the history portion of the wrestling business. I think it's a shame that Batista and Orton never had a one-on-one match at WrestleMania. So, like, I told people this when it was happening because I was doing my pro wrestling experience show during the time on Chicagoland Sports Radio. Plug for those good peeps out there. That's the IMS sports radio station, my friend Brandon. In case you were wondering, yeah. Batista, I told him Batista and Orton didn't have to close out their show. It didn't have to be the last match because obviously people know now that WrestleMania is more like a 4-piece attraction thing, and that's what it is now. It's not really like the last main event match anymore. So I thought they could have went off it that way. And there's a part of me too that was kind of bummed out that Punk and Triple H didn't happen at that WrestleMania too, because I wanted to see that, and I was really close to going to that show too, by the way.
Yeah,
and it's kind of interesting. Everybody's like, WrestleMania 30 is gonna live or die with Daniel Bryan. So think about that. We're celebrating the 30 years of WrestleMania, and everybody's only focused on Daniel Bryan. I think that's very interesting.
I think that would make for just a really great what if scenario. Yeah, I understand that Daniel Bryan talked about it in his book that he was supposed to be 5th down the card wrestling Sheamus, but really that I think would be a great question to explore. What if CM Punk did not walk out? Like, what would the entire landscape, not just WrestleMania 30, what would the entire landscape of WWE look like from that point in 2014 to now? I think that would be really interesting to explore.
Originally, I was going to say he could have won the title there, but obviously he decided to leave the day after the Rumble, so obviously that wasn't going to work out. But that WrestleMania is very interesting to me. I enjoyed it just as much as anybody. I thought Bray and Cena had an underrated match. I know people were pissed that Bray lost that match, but it's in regards to a story match. I thought that was fine.
Yep.
It's interesting, like everybody's whole calling card for that pay-per-view was Daniel Bryan, but everybody was talking about the streak coming to an end. That was the main thing everybody was talking about after that WrestleMania. So
yeah, definitely.
Look, I like to tell a couple stories here from WrestleManias that I've attended. So this is WrestleMania 22 weekend. They had the Hall of Fame at the Rosemont Theater out there in the suburbs.
That's right.
And very, very emotional show with Eddie Guerrero being inducted, and you had Bret Hart going into that year.
William the Refrigerator Perry.
Yes, sir. Mean Gene Oakland got into that class as well.
Yep.
So very emotional night, but we're going into the building and I see two pregnant ladies boxing it out in the parking lot. This is like an hour before the show. This is a shoot. Two pregnant ladies just brawling it out. And I don't even know why they were fighting, but it's kind of funny because we're close by the section where the wrestlers were parking and stuff and going to the building. And oh my God, it was such a cluster that Ron Simmons came out and was like, damn, for everybody. Then everybody popped.
That's cool.
That's what I like to tell everybody. And then I haven't told anybody this one recently, but in California, they had like this. It's kind of interesting. Like the hotel they were at was kind of in the middle of a shopping center in San Jose. It was kind of a weird setup. They had it there in for WrestleMania 31, but the WWE hotel's by a shopping center, so they had this intersection from one building to another, and they had the Hall of Fame. How ironic. It's always a Hall of Fame story. I get these crazy stories. Maybe I'll get one for next weekend as well, and I'll say it on the podcast. But this is after the ceremony. I hang out with my friend Jeff Randolph. Shout him, by the way, a good friend of mine from the IMS days. And I'm watching. I'm not watching, but I'm just chilling out, drinking. So I think I was drinking like Gatorade or something like that. And then I see Ryback coming out, and this bum comes up to him, right? So this is after the Hall of Fame. Ryback's in his suit and everything, all dapper down. And this Nimrod comes up to him, this bum. He's like, "Hey, Ryback, can I have $500?"
Oh my God.
Just like that. Hey, can I have $500? Now, let me mind you, I'm like, I'm not really close to Ryback, but I'm like 30 feet away from the guy. So I see this very clearly. And Ryback's like, nope. And then he keeps walking. And then the bump taps him on the shoulder, right?
Oh my gosh.
Ryback picks him up and puts him against the wall, and this cuts his biggest promo, probably the best promo I ever heard in his life, even though he wouldn't be able to air it on television. And then, it's funny, Ryback goes back into the hotel, and then the bump goes after Rikishi. And what's interesting about that, Rikishi got inducted into the Hall of Fame that night.
That's right.
And he's like, the bum got it really bad because the whole Samoan family actually whooped his ass after that. So even though I get a good laugh out of it, the poor guy did get got, in the words of R-Truth. So that's a couple stories I have out there. Other ones that really stand out to me, like from meeting people, like I've met Tori Wilson and Trish Stratus at a Best Buy.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. You put that on Instagram.
Yeah, I was like 11 at the time, and it was a bummer about that year's WrestleMania 2. It was the first opening day game for the Sox after they won the World Series, and they brought in Jim Tomey. I remember it like it was yesterday because it was raining outside, and I was like, "Damn, do I go to WrestleMania or do I go to the Sox game?" Because for those that don't know, I'm a big Chicago White Sox fan. I'm not a Mickey Mouse Cub fan. I'm sorry, I can't support those Nimrods. But anyways,
thank you.
Anyways, I see them. It was really cool. My mom brought me there. It was a really cool experience. They're very nice women, and I got to see Tori Wilson's dog, which is cool. That's when she was carrying the whole dog. It's kind of interesting. Right. Tori had that Playboy pillow fight thing. I mean, nothing wrong with looking at good waterfall. I mean, even if it's for 5 minutes.
By the way,
even though that might be the worst WrestleMania match ever.
By the way, Tori Wilson was my very first wrestling crush.
I don't blame you on that. Mickey James was my first one, but Tori Wilson would be a close second on that list. Mamma mia. Anyways, so being part of the media, this is a funny story because this is one of the reasons why I left the old site that I was on, not WrestleZone, but the other one, Between the Ropes. So I'm 20 years old at the time. I'm still at IMS. Just getting ready to graduate, and the guy that owned the site was like, "Hey, you can't use Between the Ropes as a reference for applying for credentials in media." I'm like, Really? So not only do I not get paid for doing these articles for Between the Ropes, but I can't use them as a I can't use you guys as a reference in order to do the live. I'm using air quotes here, live coverage
Oh wow.
of WrestleMania, right? And the only way I got into that was I applied via my show. And CSR's radio station doesn't have a big outreach. It doesn't. It's part of a school sports radio station. The only way I got it out there was got the name of the podcast out there was because I was sharing it out on social media. I was sharing it on my YouTube channel. You guys could go check out my old interviews that I have on this YouTube channel. And from Jim Ross and Ken Shamrock to DDP and et cetera, et cetera. I interview a lot of cool people. So anyways, they're like, oh, you can't use this as a reference. And if you're going to WrestleMania, you got to pay on your own accord. Okay, so that's what happened. I didn't have to pay for tickets for the show because shout out to Adam Hawkins, who's the main PR guy for the WWE. He gave me a call and said, I will approve you for credentials. The only thing is that we don't have enough space for the press box. So he gave me a free ticket to the show. But he said that he would save it for me in will call. So I was allowed to go to Access for free and take pictures and stuff and interview a couple guys. I interviewed Bo Dallas.
Oh, okay.
That was pretty cool. And it was a really bummer because, I was getting the groove of doing the play-by-play articles, Brandon, and then, I'm not allowed to do that, even though I'm doing it for the site, and I don't get paid for it. So it was, I had a fun time at WrestleMania, but it was really unfortunate because I should have been paid to go out there and
Most
be part of the
definitely.
press box. And I think they were kind of turned off at the fact that how good I was at my age, humbly speaking. Humbly speaking, I ought to make that perfectly clear. I'm not one of those guys. But either way, I had a fun trip out there, but it should have been the other way around. You want somebody to do live cars for you, but you won't allow them to use them as reference for.
That is stupid. Very stupid.
Yeah, but anyways, also now at WrestleZone, we're gonna wrap it up here in a couple minutes. But WrestleZone, I had a good run with there. The first show that I covered for WrestleZone was SummerSlam 2015. It was the one Brock took on Taker.
Yep.
I remember that, and John Cena and Seth Rollins with John Stewart. I remember that one like it's yesterday. So I was doing WrestleZone from there from that night to next week. SmackDown Live will be the last night I'm part of the site. And realistically, at the end of the day, it just comes to this. I put a lot of time and effort into these pieces, and I really do, because a lot of the sites just copy and paste the other sites. And I really try to make these pieces stand out and just give you a different format. I tell people it's like the ultimate reference sheet for those who do wrestling podcasts and stuff. I give you everything you need to see. I'm not doing stupid match ratings. I don't need to give a match 6 stars. I don't have that big of an ego. I'm doing my work, and I take a lot of pride in the articles I do. But literally the salary that I was getting was kind of a slap in the face, especially with the fact that I was bringing in the most amount of readers. My articles were outdoing rumor reports and breaking news reports on WrestleZone. And WrestleZone is one of the biggest wrestling websites out there. And at the end of the day, man, I need to have a good return on investment in this stuff, but I also need respect too. When you're gonna have a passive aggressive attitude towards me and you pay me a shit salary that's just ridiculous on the surface, I'm not gonna waste my time doing it anymore. It's just that simple. I put a lot of pride into the work I'm doing. I'm grateful for the platform, but at the end of the day, I know what I'm worth and the amount of effort that I put into these things, whether it's my podcast or the articles, but that stuff's just unacceptable. So for the meantime, I'm going to take a break from writing articles, but I want to continue doing this. But for those who are wondering, that's why I decided to leave WrestleZone.
Yeah, I can't blame you. See, the thing is that you have to. How do I say this? you always have to ask you what you feel that you're worth. Your boss should have the guts to say no, and your decision to leaving, I can't really blame you for that. You take a little time, kind of reevaluate your options, and I'm sure you'll find another website to write for, and I'm sure that they'll see the hard work that you put into your play-by-play articles every single week, and I'm sure that they'll treat you they'll treat you right, I guess.
Mm-hmm. And also, like, my podcast, sometimes we're doing more numbers than some of the articles they're doing.
Right.
I mean, like, I get some people come in here and there and do opinion pieces and stuff, but to get like a curtain jerker salary, if we're using wrestling terms here, for a wrestling website like that, I just think it's kind of ridiculous. And my articles were up there with CBS and Forbes, and I didn't get crap in return for that. If anything, I got grief for it, even though I was covering Lucha, the CWC, SmackDown, and pay-per-views all in the same week. So it is what it is. I'm moving on. It's for the best, though. It's either way. But Brandon, last thing before we get out of here, any other WrestleMania memories that stand out to you, or anything that you're looking forward to for this year's show?
I did mention earlier that I'm excited for that mixed tag with John Cena and Nikki Bella, The Miz and Maurice. Looking forward to, man, there's so many matches on the card. I think one other thing I'm looking forward to is seeing Enzo and Cass hopefully winning the Raw tag team titles. I mentioned this in one of my Sports Authority shorts I did. It was actually the review I did for WWE Fastlane that there's just no way that WWE is going to constantly hold off when Kaz and Enzo are going to get the big win and win the tag team titles. They did not win the tag titles in NXT, which is an absolute crime. They have not done so yet on the main roster. They've had their opportunities, but they've come up short. And Enzo and Cass are going to be just out of this world crazy over with the fans at Camping World Stadium in Orlando. Winning the tag team titles on the biggest stage of them all, WrestleMania, would be just tremendous for them. And I would be very, very happy for them. I'm a big, big fan of Kaz and Enzo. I think that Randy Orton and Bray Wyatt will have a good match for the WWE Championship. As for Goldberg and Brock, you gave the belt to one part-timer, you're giving it to another part-timer, but I am a big Brock Lesnar fan. I do like Suplex City and everything, and for him to win the Universal Championship at WrestleMania, him getting another world title win on the biggest stage of them all, will be really, really cool to see, even though the match I don't think is going very long. But I do believe Brock will get the win. And I think the other thing I'm most looking forward to is the Cruiserweight title match, Austin Aries and Neville. Hopefully that they will give them enough time to steal the show. If they give them 13, 14, 15 minutes, I really feel that they could have a spectacle of a match. And he missed out on last year's WrestleMania due to injury, broke his ankle on a baseball slide of all things. Yeah. But here he is coming in. You can argue that the best run of his career. I mean, I think it's been better than his run with the NXT title. Just heel Neville, it fits him perfectly. He's doing great things with his character. He's great on the mic, and he truly is, I think, one of the best they have in that company in terms of wrestling ability. And Austin Aries is one of the best that they have as well. And it'll be Austin Aries' first WrestleMania. And I just feel that they will have a tremendous match if given time. Neville and Jack Gallagher had a tremendous match at Fastlane. Why can't Neville and Austin Aries do the same? So I'm excited for that match. There are some things on this WrestleMania card to get excited about. I don't want people going into the show thinking it's gonna be all gloom and doom, because it's not gonna be all gloom and doom. Wouldn't you agree?
No, I totally agree. I'm looking forward to this show. It's gonna be a freaking blast. I know, Brandon, you'll be talking about it this week on the Sports Authority, which you can check it out on WRSE 88.7, my friend, right? FM?
Yes, and I always put the link up for people to listen on their phone or computer or tablet. You can follow me on Twitter at WRSC Brandon. I will be live tweeting during WrestleMania 33. I'll be live tweeting tonight during the NCAA tournament games, which are going on right now. And yeah, I'm just there's stuff to get excited about this upcoming week in the world of professional wrestling. Plus NXT TakeOver Toronto. I'll be doing predictions for that. There's just a lot to look forward to, and you can follow me on Twitter for all of that. And you can like our Facebook page for the Sports Authority. It's the Sports Authority with Brandon and Jacob, WRC 88.7.
Yes, sir. And thank you guys so much for supporting this edition of Josh Lopez Wrestling Podcast. I'll be back next week for episode 49. That's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to be doing that, making my predictions and stuff before I head out to Orlando. I'm going to be there from Thursday to Tuesday, so I hope to meet some of you good peeps down there. All I ever ask is don't be a Nimrod. That's all I ever ask. You can follow me on Twitter at Notorious Joshi. Make sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel to get every previous edition of the Josh Lopez Wrestling Podcast. Unfortunately, due to some storage limits and crap from Podomac.com, I'm not able to air every show on iTunes as much as I want to, but I will for next week's show because I know it's a big week ahead. But if you're interested in my services for writing services or podcasts or etc., you can hit me up at Twitter at Notorious Joshi or send me an email to joshlopez91@yahoo.com. And thank you guys so much for checking out this episode. I promised you guys I was going to do this. I'm glad Brandon stepped up to the plate and wanted to be part of the show, and I really appreciate that. And he'll be back on the show sometime soon. But thank you guys so much for the support of this particular podcast. Love you guys. Enjoy your weekend. And Brandon, good brother, thanks for coming on again.
Yeah, no problem. I appreciate the time, and it was a lot of fun to be on here. Thank you, and I look forward to another appearance.
Absolutely. For Brandon DeJesus, my name is Josh Lopez. Thank you guys so much for checking out episode 48 of the Josh Lopez Wrestling Podcast. Enjoy the last Raw and SmackDown before WrestleMania 33, and I'll talk to you all on Tuesday. Peace.
Peace.